As Democrats push forward with the next phase of their impeachment push tomorrow with a House Judiciary Committee hearing featuring constitutional law scholars, comparisons with former President Nixon are ramping up again.
Well, the only thing we can say is that it's not so much that this situation is different in terms of Nixon's conduct and Trump's conduct. What we've seen here is far more serious than a third-rate burglary. That is beyond anything Nixon did.
Well, constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley, who's one of the witnesses tomorrow, says those words by Adam Schiff capture the vast constitutional challenge for the House. Turley tweets there is still disagreement, to use a Clintonian twist, of what this is. Whatever this is, it is not Nixonian, at least not yet. Let's bring in former Attorney General, now running for his old Senate seat in Alabama, Jeff Sessions. Good to have you back with us, Senator. I'll call you.
Thanks, Shannon. Good to be with you.
Okay, so what do you make of this? Because tomorrow we're going to hear from these law professors who are going to talk about the constitutional issues, the founders' intents, what they really meant for when it comes to impeachment. But today, the House Intel Chairman, Adam Schiff, as they prepared their report to go over to House Judiciary, said this about the president's actions.
If the Congress allows a president to so fully and blanketly obstruct the work of Congress, even involving an impeachment investigation into the president's own misconduct, then we are begging for more of the same.
He says basically Congress has a duty to step up and protect the office of the presidency, the balance of powers among the branches, and that the president will continue to do things that he assesses as being, unseemly at best if they don't stop him.
Look, he's become obsessed with this. Democrats have just gotten so wired up and amped up that they're not objective anymore. Jonathan Turley, Professor Turley, has said this will be the narrowest base for an impeachment in our history. Ken Starr, who prosecuted the Clinton matter, said this nowhere close to an impeachable offense. That's what I believe. And so I think the danger is that Congress will overreach. It will set a precedent for too readily bringing impeachment charges. What if the Republicans are in the majority and they don't like the Democratic president? Are they going to start impeachment proceedings, distracting the ability of this government to be run? One of the things I learned as Attorney General, it is hard to run this government. And these kind of things distract every leader every day and take them away from the responsibilities the American people want to see them do.
And obviously, you saw and experienced things in a way differently than the American people did from the outside when it comes to some of these allegations regarding the 2016 investigation or the election. So what do you make of the beating sort of that Senator Kennedy is taking by saying, not dismissing that Russia was certainly involved, but saying it's possible that Ukraine was as well? Politico says this: the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee thoroughly investigated this theory that Ukraine actively worked to aid Hillary Clinton, according to people with direct knowledge of the inquiry, and found no evidence that Ukraine waged a top-down interference campaign akin to the Kremlin's efforts to help Trump win in 2016.
Well, I'm not sure how relevant or important all of that is, except to say it does appear that leaders in the Ukraine did what they could to cooperate with the Clinton campaign to have her win the election. So I think that much is appears to be undisputed. So I would say that what we need to focus on is there a basis in this phone call to justify the removal of a president of the United States? I don't think it's close.
Do you think that the Democrats don't either, but on the other side, obviously, they say that this is a clear case. Peggy Noonan, I believe, wrote the article where she said, what are they going to do in the Senate? It's such an open and shut case. What are they even going to debate or talk about? How different do you think it will be if this ends up in a Senate trial and the White House and Republicans have much more of a seat at the table when it comes to calling witnesses?
Well, you know, it'd be hard to say for sure, but the rules of the Senate are pretty specific about how an impeachment must move forward rapidly, and there's firm rules on how it's to be done. Certain things are in dispute or could be argued differently, like motions to dismiss and those kind of things that might occur. But it would be a shame to have the Senate, the whole Senate, sitting in the chamber going through weeks of an impeachment process that may take as much as 8 weeks. This would be a real disruption of the government of the United States. Well, I think it's historically important that they state, the Democrats state, why this is justified. And my hope is, and my plea to them is, don't do it. Don't start this path with insufficient charges of impeachment that disrupt the country and when they're not justified.
And quickly, I want to ask you, one of the jurors who will be sitting in the Senate is now Senator Kamala Harris. She won't be on the campaign trail anymore. She dropped out today. Any thoughts on that?
Well, she claimed one of her great achievements was to stand up to Jeff Sessions, Brett Kavanaugh, Attorney General Barr, and President Trump. Well, she's 0 for 4. All 4 of them are still standing, and she's out. So who knows?
Yeah, that's quite a list there. Senator, you are on it, and we'll continue to watch your bid to return to the Senate as well. Thanks for dropping in.
Thank you. Good to be with you.